Number 22, it says graph the function. Now, keep in mind, these are quadratics. There's a 2 right there, a 2 right there, so we know it's going to be a parabola. So just by knowing the way it transforms, by knowing that the a value is -1, you know it's going to be opening down. You know it's going to have your vertex. If you look at it in vertex form, that's vertex form right there, and you will be able to identify your vertex. Your vertex is the hk value, right, the coordinate, but you get your h, which is your x value, and the k, which is your y value. And you always think opposite on h. That's why there's a minus sign right here, so think opposite on h. So notice that on number 22, let me zoom in, there are no parentheses around the x. So technically, that's an h value of 0, because if you wanted to visualize something in there with x, there's nothing there, so you could say that h is 0 and your k value is 2. So your vertex is 0, 2. So since you know that your vertex is 0, 2, you already know that if you go to the xy coordinate plane and you go to 0 and 2, you're going to be up there, 2 units up, and you know it's going to have the pattern 1 over 1 down, 2 over 4 down, 3 over 9 down, reflected onto the other side. You'll get a good idea of what it looks like. You'll be able to identify it on the XY plane. That's multiple choice answers for you on the final. Number 23, this one's not in vertex form, right? It doesn't have parentheses. Actually has two x's, 1x squared and 1x. That's what we call standard form. If you forgot what standard form is, it's simply ax squared plus bx plus c, where your a value is -2 in this case, your b value is 6 in this case, and your c value is -2 in this case. So right here you'd want to find the vertex. How do you find the vertex? You use x equals -b over 2a. And of course, when you use it, let's use parentheses, -b over 2 times a. So let's put the b and the a in parentheses. We said that the b value is 6. We said that the a value is -2. When we work this out, we'll get -6 divided by -4. So our vertex x value happens to be 3/2 positive because we reduced it. So the vertex x value happens to be 3/2. So ladies and gentlemen, on number 23, they want you to identify, because it's going to be multiple choice, they're going to give you 4 graphs. And I believe just by knowing your x value of your vertex, you know your axis of symmetry, and I believe you'll be able to, with knowing that it does open down, and knowing that the axis of symmetry is 1.5, and knowing that the 2 is a vertical stretch, it's a narrower graph than normal, you should be able to identify the correct graph. Now, remember, this one will not have the pattern 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9. This one would have to be modified by multiplying the second numbers by 2. So instead of 1, 1, it'll be 1, 2, the pattern from the vertex, 1, 2. Instead of 2, 4, it's going to be 2, 8. And the 3, 9, the 3, 18, you're not going to even worry about because that's going to be off the graph. So anyways, I believe that just with this x value, you'll be able to identify the multiple choice answer that has the parabola that opens down, that's pretty narrow, and it has the axis of symmetry at 1.5. And of course, you could even look at the pattern from those parabolas and make sure that it's 1, 2, 2, 8 instead of 1, 1, 2, 4. Number 24, we have a quadratic equation. Now, most of the time, we try to factor, split, and solve, but in this case, you can't think or you can't find what times what is -13, that if you combine together is +26. You just can't do it. So we are forced to use the quadratic formula on number 24, the quadratic formula. In order for you to use the quadratic formula, you need to identify your a value of 1, your b value of 26. So the a value is 1, the b value is 26, and the c value is -13. So let's write the quadratic formula. X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2 times a. And a good way to apply the quadratic formula is to replace your letters with parentheses. So there it is. Now let me plug in my a values of 1. My a value of 1 is right here and right here. And let's plug in our b value of 26. So your b value of 26 goes in here and in here, 26. And the C value is negative 13, so let's plug in negative 13 over here. And let's work it out. And of course, we will use a calculator. So with the calculator, 26 squared, 26 times 26 is 676. So let me rewrite this whole thing. So far I did 26 squared, that's 676. 2 times 1, that's 2. And the negative 26, I just brought it down. I still need to go negative 4 times 1, that's negative 4, times negative 13, that's going to be a positive 52. So I need to put a plus 52 right in there, right next to the 676, plus 52. And if I did add 676 plus 52 on my calculator, I get 728. So I'm really going to have this same exact fraction here, but instead of this, I'm going to put 728. Now, the problem here is when I try to do the square root of 728 on a calculator, we get a decimal number, which means that this might be our final answer. We still need to attempt to rewrite the 728 as a breaking it down with multiplication to get a perfect square number. So the question is 728 divisible by a perfect square number? Like if you try 728 divided by 4 on a calculator, 728 divided by 4, it does work. It's 182. So I know for a fact that I could do 728. If I rewrite it as 4 times 182, it'll work. And if I split them, I'll have 2 square root of 182. 2 square root of 182, not 188. Sorry about that. As my new simplified radical. So what I'm going to do is replace 2 square root of 182. I'm going to switch it with the square root of 728. So I'm really going to have, and I apologize, it's getting messy here. And since I have even terms, I have 26, I have 2, I have 2, it's all divisible by 2. All 3 terms are divisible by 2. So if I were to divide by 2, I'm going to get negative 13 right here. If I divide it by 2, I get a 1 right there. Divide it by 2, I don't have anything left on the bottom. So my final answer technically is negative 13 plus or minus the square root of 182. Negative 13 plus or minus the square root of 182. You're supposed to try to break down 182 again with multiplication, but 182 divided by 4, it doesn't work. You want to break it down with the perfect square number. 182 divided by 9, it doesn't work. So that's as far as you could go. That is your answer for this question on the final, or a similar type question on the final. Number 25, solve the system of equations. Now remember, there was different ways of solving systems. You could either line them up, x on top of x, y on top of y, and you could use linear combinations to get a variable to cancel, and then you plug in your answer, and that's called the elimination method or linear combinations method. But there's this other method called substitution. Whenever you do have a letter by itself, like y equals, you could take that y value and you could plug it into the y spot of the other equation. So what we're going to do here is rewrite this equation, but instead of this y, I'm plugging in the binomial 3x minus 12. I want to plug it right into that y. So let me rewrite it. There it is, it's rewritten. The only thing I have to do now is to take that negative 3x minus 12 and plug it right into the y spot, which is why I left parentheses right there. So in these parentheses, let me plug in a negative 3x minus 12, and let me zoom in on that. I want to plug in the negative 3x minus 12 right in there. And now from there, I'm actually going to distribute negative 8 times negative 3, that's positive 24, and it's with an x. Negative 8 times negative 12, that's positive 96. We still have the equal sign, the negative 86. Whoops, 86. Over here we have a 2x out in front, and we could combine the terms that are alike on the left side, which means I could combine 2x plus 24x to give me a total of 26x's. Plus 96 equals negative 86. So the next step would be to subtract 96 to get x by itself on one side. Subtract 96. You're going to end up with 26 equals, because those guys canceled out, negative 182. And the final, actually 26x, I'm sorry. And the final step would be to divide by 26 and divide by 26. So your answer should be x equals -7. So we have one answer, but remember this was a system, so we need to take that answer and plug it back in to find the other value of y. So let's take the -7 for x and plug it right there. So let me plug in a -7 right there, and it's going to be y equals -3 times, like I said, plugging in a -7 right there and a -12 at the very end. Well, what's -3 times -7? That's positive 21. So I really have positive 21 take away 12, and that would give me a 9. So the y value is 9. So the answer is the x value of -7, the coordinate -7, and the y value of 9. That's the answer to that system. Now it could have been done with linear combinations. It might be more comfortable for you. You could do that. Maybe I will explain that on a different video, to do it over, do number 25 over, but with linear combinations method. But for now, let's go to, actually, let's just stop right there, and I'll start the other video by explaining 25 done with linear combinations.